This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Dowby, interim president of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Frank Ridley, and his shirt says Emperor of Meriden, Connecticut. So you really must be the Emperor of Meriden, Connecticut. When did that title begin?
Around the year 2000, when I retired from my paying job, and I became active in all kinds of civic type things. And an author friend of mine, who actually world-renowned author, Laura Van Wormer, came up to me one day and said, "You're the Emperor of Meriden." So
You said, "I'll take it."
I said, "I'll take it." And so I had a costume made for a Mardi Gras, and it just kind of stuck after that, and I use it at many of these
And
civic
who
events.
gave you this elegant shirt?
Oh, I had them made.
You had to pay for your own shirt?
Of course.
The
emperor has to have his own clothes, you know.
I wasn't going to say anything along those lines. But now, Frank, you've lived in Meriden. Not only have you lived in Meriden all your life, but tell us about your family history.
My family's been in Meriden since the 1840s. And prior to that, we've been in the United States since, as near as we can find out, somewhere around the Revolutionary War time. We've been in the United States.
So tell me, what happened in 1840?
I honestly don't know. They migrated to Meriden for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason why. But they, and we've been there ever since.
And were they in a particular business or?
No. No. They've done just about everything. Most of my family over the years, at least in the United States, have been laborers, that sort of thing.
And to go to, let's say, your great-grandfather, grandfather, what did they do in Meriden?
They were workers, laborers.
And
my father was as well.
And do you know what houses they occupied?
Yes.
And that kind of thing?
Oh, yes. Yes, at the top of what's known as Columbus Avenue in Meriden, it's a very high hill, was known as Ridley Hill at one point because they all lived up there.
Oh, I think that should be renamed. What's it called now?
Columbus Avenue.
Columbus Avenue.
There's no Ridleys up there anymore.
Oh, you could take care of that, couldn't you?
I could.
Well, this is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Dowby, and This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Dowby, interim president of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Frank Ridley, who likes to see himself as the Emperor of Meriden. Well, actually, some people in Meriden like to see you as the Emperor of Meriden.
That's true.
And we were talking about how your family lived on Columbus Avenue, which used to be called Meriden Hill.
No, Ridley Hill.
I'm sorry, Ridley Hill. Ridley
yes.
Hill. Well, maybe you could give your name to the whole town at some point.
I think that'd be a good idea.
So anyway, did you go to public school in Meriden?
I did.
And then what?
Then I went to work, and while I was going to work, I went to an insurance agency in Hartford, and while I was going there, I did my college career while I was at work.
What college did you go to?
It wasn't Middlesex, unfortunately. It was Post.
Well, Middlesex probably was very much in its infancy. I won't ask how old
you saying
are.
that I've been around for a few years? Yes,
I guess I am.
Actually, Middlesex was around because many of the classes I took at Post, I did at evenings, and so I took the classes at one of the Meriden high schools at the same time that Middlesex was holding classes there as well. So Middlesex was around then.
So you paid high prices, went to a private institution.
I did.
Did you get you got your bachelor's there?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
So tell us about your insurance career.
My insurance career is that I went to work for R.C. Knox in Hartford back in the late 70s and became an owner of the company. And one of my areas of expertise was in mass marketing. This was in its infancy back then, and we actually went out and sold personal lines insurance products to large employers for their employees. So all the employees of Aetna, for example, all the employees of Travelers were all insured through my company. And that was the area that I was in charge of. And we ended up selling our company to People's Bank in 1998, which allowed me to retire at a very young age.
Very, very young age.
Very young age, yes.
So you've been living in Meriden and working as a volunteer, because I know you work. You're
Yes.
out almost every day doing
yes.
various things.
Yes, once I retired, I did become involved in just about everything. And in fact, I was on the boards of, I think, 14 or 15 organizations at the same time. and president of at least 6 of them at the same
So,
time.
so how many plaques do you have at home?
Oh,
in the attic or wherever?
I've lost track. There's boxes and boxes of
So
them.
the emperor obviously needs a palace to
He does.
to display.
He does.
To
The
display all
house
this.
is just not big enough.
I got to know you, of course, through higher education. We'll get to that in a minute. But you've also been chair of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, I just finished a 2-year term as chairman of the Greater Meriden Chamber of Commerce, and I'm now there for another 2 years as immediate past chair.
Tell us a bit about the Chamber of Commerce.
What would you like to know? It's a
Well,
business organization.
Most of our listeners are in Middlesex County, so they're
Okay.
just next door to you.
Yep.
Though you have some listeners in Meriden, I'm sure, who are checking their wallets as we speak. Tell us a bit. What's a Chamber of Commerce for? What do they do?
Chamber of Commerce is there as an advocate for the business community, and it'll do a whole host
So
of
you
things.
brought your background in insurance.
I did.
To that,
I
obviously.
did. And it'll be an advocate both in the government and economic development area. It's a great networking tool. It gets involved in education and gets involved in just about everything that the businesses in the community may need. Meriden is a bit smaller than the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce, which you're familiar with.
Well, it's impossible to be larger.
It would be, and Larry McHugh has really taken that to a whole different degree
Right.
than anybody else in the state. Of course, he has an entire county to deal with. The Greater Meriden Chamber of Commerce is a regional chamber. It's not just Meriden. We do have members throughout the state, but the majority are in the Meriden, Wallingford, Berlin area.
Does Wallingford have a Chamber of Commerce of its own?
They do. Wallingford is part of the Quinnipiac Chamber, which is Wallingford and North Haven.
Tell me, what's been the most controversial issue you've had to deal with on the Chamber board that you're willing to talk about?
I'm not sure there's really been anything terribly controversial. We are put in position at times that we have conflicting desires from some of our members, and we have to decide which direction to go when that occurs. Sometimes we don't take any action. Sometimes we will work in favor of one and not the other.
Well, since
whatever.
you've chaired the board for a couple of years, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Let's say I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm running a business in Meriden, and I have a particular point of view on something that's going on in that particular neighborhood, and I want the Chamber to support me. And not every person probably would support me. So what happens in a situation
The
like
chamber
that?
board, first it'll usually start at a committee level, and if it's a political type thing, which it sounds like your situation might be, it would start in the government and business affairs area, and it'll work its way up to the chamber board, and the chamber board actually would discuss it and perhaps take a position. Many times the position is not taken if we have members on both sides of the issue, and it's not appropriate for them to take a position, but in some cases it will. The areas that we will most likely take a position are in those that involve business development or something along those lines.
So downtown is
Downtown is huge.
It's huge.
It's
at this
huge,
point.
as you know, from the Middlesex Meriden Center. We're looking to grow the downtown area or the central business district of Meriden, and we certainly hope that Middlesex would be a major player in that decision.
Now, what's the role of nonprofits in the chamber?
We do have nonprofit members. They are a business just as well as a for-profit business, and so we do have them involved as well.
Yeah, and I mean at this point, Middlesex Community College is a for-loss institution. We don't have much money. Do you have different amounts of money that they have to put in? And
Generally,
that
it
kind of
depends on the size of the business. The larger the business, the higher the dues generally. It starts at a very low rate of $245 per year, and I don't recall what the top rate is.
Millions.
Yeah, not quite. That would be a different chamber.
Now, let's say I run a non-profit group in Meriden. Why would I want to be a part of the chamber?
Well, it could be any number of reasons. The chamber, first off, has products that are available, such as health insurance and other things like that, that they may not be able to get at a reasonable rate as an individual, and so they get it through the group area there. It's a great networking opportunity for many businesses to exchange ideas with other small business owners. You also have the situation where chamber, as I said, advocates for your business. Mm-hmm. So you have a whole group that are trying to do the same things for business. We use the downtown as an example. One downtown business owner may not be able to get a lot done, but if you get them all working together, you may be able to accomplish many of the things you wish to.
I learned just recently about the coming of rail.
Yes.
In a new way to Meriden. Mm-hmm. What's been the role of the chamber?
The chamber has been in the forefront of that. Sean Moore, who is the president of the chamber, has sat on the...
And a Middlesex graduate.
That's right. And he has sat on the Transportation Strategy Board for the state, and so consequently has played a major role in that. When all is said and done, I believe Meriden will have 52 trains going through on a daily basis, whereas now they have 12. So it'll make a major change, and obviously having a viable transportation mode so people don't have to use their cars for everything really connects us much more strenuously to Hartford, to New Haven, to Boston, to New York. It's a very exciting thing. And as that develops, I think that the whole central business district will become more developed as
Is there a downside to having 52 trains coming through rather than 12? I'm thinking of noise, for instance.
Well, I don't think the noise will have a major downsides, but it could have an impact based on the time cars have to wait to cross the tracks, for example. That is something that's being studied right now, and they're determining ways to make that less of an issue. One of them, for example, is that the entry onto the trains will be at... I forget what the term is, but it's right at level. Whereas now you in Meriden you have to walk up a few steps to get into the train, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so having it right at the level will allow for a speedier transition. In addition, they'll have a walkover at the station so that you'll be on the right side of the train depending on what direction it's going and whatnot. There'll also be 2 tracks rather than 1. They're double tracking the entire area. So all these things will minimize that, but that is still a concern.
Don't you think the Emperor of Meriden should have a free trip to Europe to look at train systems in various countries there?
Yeah, I don't know who we should speak to, though.
Well, maybe the chamber will pay for that.
I'll talk to Sean when I see him.
Yes. Good luck. Good luck. And now, obviously, Middlesex Community College Meriden Center is part of the chamber.
Yes, it is.
What does it mean for the chamber to have the college as a member?
I think it's huge. In a lot of respects. Not every chamber has an educational institution, and not every chamber has an educational institution that is really concerned about workforce. And I think that's a huge tie-in to the chamber. Middlesex basically trains people to be in the workforce community. And your people in the Meriden Center are very involved in our education committee. They're very involved in the central business district and come forward with a whole host of ideas to make all these areas better.
You know, that's good to hear. And our listeners should know I did not pay for that commercial. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Dowby, and this is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Dowby, interim president of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Frank Ridley, former immediate past chair of the Chamber of Commerce in Meriden, and resident of Meriden, and your family goes back to 1840. That's wonderful. You need to do a little research on what they were doing. Were they thieves and vagabonds, or were they doing good for the community in the 19th century? I just raised the question.
Excellent question. I can go back much further. I do know that one of my ancestors was burned at the stake during the English Reformation. So,
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to talk about higher education,
well,
but this is much more important.
No, I think you should talk about higher education.
Much more interesting. I should tell us just a little bit about...
Well, Bishop Nicholas Ridley was the Bishop of London, and when Mary came to the throne after Henry VIII, obviously due to the religious turmoil, he had become what is now known as an Anglican, and he was burned to the stake because he would not go back to
And that is your family?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, yes. Oh, that's wonderful. I would be prouder of that even than of being emperor of Meriden. Not that that isn't a wonderful distinction. So anyway, we got to know each other some years ago because you were, at that point, chair of the Board of Governors of Higher Education. How did you first get interested in higher education? I mean, apart from being a student at Post, I understand that.
Actually, it was a very interesting thing that occurred. When I retired, one of the people that worked for me for a short period of time was John Rowland, who was subsequently a governor.
And our listeners have heard of him.
Governor of Connecticut.
Yes.
And so John worked for us for a period of time in between the time that he left the House in D.C. and then became governor. And so when I retired, he gave me a call and said, "Frank, first off, you're way too young to retire," and I was.
That was fair comment.
Yeah, it really was. And he said, I don't want you sitting around the house doing nothing. Well, little did he know. And so he said, "I have this position available. Would you like to take it?" And he appointed me for the first time in 2000 to the Board of Governors, and it's been history ever since.
So that was not to be chair. That was to be a member.
That was just to be a member. I did not become chair until 2006.
This was not to butter you up, but I've always been impressed at how much you get out to the campuses and how much you know about what goes on in higher education. That first year, go back to that first year, how did you inform yourself of what the issues were and what goes on?
A lot of reading of materials. Every one of our board meetings, we get a board book that's probably about 3 or 4 inches thick. And so that gives us a good idea what's happening in programs and whatnot. I made a point of talking to anybody who did appear before us, both before and after the meetings. Spent a lot of time talking with our staff. Had a few mentors on the board itself who've been around longer than I have that gave me information and whatnot. And realized very early on that one of the ways to get to know things was to actually get out and visit the campuses. I believe I am probably one of the few people that have visited almost every campus in the state of Connecticut.
Public and private?
And private.
Wow.
Public and private. Many of them through commencements. I do get to somewhere between 12 and 16 commencements per year. And
then I have to congratulate you for not falling asleep.
Thank you.
Because one commencement is a little bit like another, isn't it?
Many of them are. They really
I know you rank the Middlesex commencement as one of the best.
Absolutely.
But
it's one that I've attended just about every year as well.
Okay. Well, and you're welcome next year, I'm sure.
Thank you.
So when you first started on the Board of Higher Education, what were the main issues? Not what are the main issues today. That would take us too long. But what were the main issues then?
I'm not sure that they really were any different than they are today in a number of ways. They're pretty standard. Making sure that we have a quality education in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut has very high standards for our institutions, more so than many of the other states. And the Board of Governors is responsible for making sure that those standards are upheld, that the rigor is there, that someone getting a degree actually is meaningful. We had
Now, since maybe our listeners don't fully understand this, institutions have their own board, at least for a while, still have their own boards of trustees.
That's right.
And the Board of Higher Education doesn't, in fact, run any institutions itself.
That is correct.
How does it interact with the institutions in terms of ensuring quality?
Okay. It doesn't run the institution, but any program in the state of Connecticut from a public or a private institution, any new program that they could put into place has to come before our board for approval for licensure and or accreditation. Even though it may go through their board first, it then has to come before us. And that's where we develop the standards. We have a standing committee of experts from many of the institutions that looks at it first to say, okay, this meets many of the gen ed requirements, it's blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera.
Gen ed being general education.
Yeah. And then it looks and makes sure that the college has the proper facilities for library and everything else that is needed. There's a whole host of standards.
So if Middlesex has a program already in place that's accredited,
yes,
and has been for many years, you don't particularly take a look at it unless there's a problem.
That's correct.
But if we want to introduce a program in basket weaving, let's say, you would then take a look at what?
at whether that met the educational requirements that are necessary, whether you had the proper faculty involved, whether you had facilities that are available, whether you had library facilities, all the various things that are necessary for the program.
And does the board often vote something down?
No, because by the time it reaches us, it has been reviewed by several other groups, and they've pointed all the flaws to them and whatnot. That doesn't mean that we rubber stamp either. We have, in many instances, said, well, we will allow this, but we want several provisos put into it, that sort of thing. Some of the for-profit institutions that have started coming into the state of Connecticut have really been put through a rigorous workout before we've allowed them to.
So if I'm running a for-profit college out of Boston, let's say, and I want to have a little branch somewhere in Connecticut, do I have to come to you?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we will have to license the program in Connecticut. We can't accredit you or anything because you're not a state college, but we would still have to license the program in Connecticut, and we would still have to look at that.
Have you ever had to shut down a program?
Yes.
How does that, what happens there? We don't need to name
No,
names.
we can't name names. If they no longer are doing what they need to be doing, and in some cases it's the financial problems, we would shut them down.
Now, I've always been puzzled. There are 4 institutions in Connecticut that do not have to come to you for
That's
board
correct.
approval. Let's see if I can remember them. Yale, Wesleyan, Trinity, and Conn College.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Tell me about those.
Actually, there's a 5th because it's a federal institution, and that's the Coast Guard
Coast
Academy.
Guard Academy,
And the
okay.
Coast Guard Academy, incidentally, does choose to come through us for their approvals. They don't have to. But
Oh,
they do.
really?
Yes. The reason those 4 do, because as I understand it, they predate.
They predate the Ridleys.
They come into Connecticut.
Coming to Connecticut.
Yeah, actually, they even predate, in my understanding, the establishment of the state government in many cases, and so they were written out.
They were,
of the,
as we
they
would
were
say, grandfathered.
That's correct.
Do you think that's a problem, or is that okay? I'm just asking for your personal view, of course.
I don't really think it's too much of a problem. They've been around for so long that, quite frankly, if they don't know how to do it by now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Yes.
they'll ever know. And we're not talking about institutions either that are a little bit shaky. These are quality national institutions.
Sure.
So I don't really see a major problem there.
Is it conceivable that some other institution, more recently founded, could be so highly regarded that they would be given that kind of pass?
I'm not aware of that pending anywhere.
But theoretically,
I suppose in theory anything's possible, but I
I think in this day and age it's highly unlikely.
I think it's highly unlikely as well. I think that if people had to do it over again, they might have made different decisions even then, because I'm sure it creates some problems among institutions. That one institution will say to another, "Why are you exempt and I'm not?" And I'm sure it creates some problems there. But I don't see it happening.
Have you ever had a situation where, let's say, Middlesex Community College wants a program in basket weaving, and we meet all the criteria, and you're going to approve it, but deep down you just don't think basket weaving is really a very good idea? Obviously,
Yes,
that's extreme.
Yes, not used in Middlesex College, but yes, we have had a few other institutions that were a little bit off the beaten path, shall we say, in their mission and the way they wanted to do things. And no, we did not turn it down ultimately because it met the standards, but we had some very lengthy discussions as to the direction and whether it really was something we wanted to see done in Connecticut or not.
Now, you've been chair of the Board of Governors under a Republican governor, of course,
Yes.
and now under a Democratic governor.
Yes.
Does that make any difference to the way you do your job? I guess I'm asking a political question.
No, it doesn't. Because I do not believe our board is political to begin with. I believe that we're there to do a job for the citizens of Connecticut, and it doesn't matter who the governor is. And in addition to that, the governor appoints currently 7 members of our board, and the other 4 are appointed by members of the legislature. So it's a bipartisan group to begin with. The governor does not appoint our officers. They are elected by our board currently. Obviously, with changes that are pending in the state, all that will be changing. So.
Right, but I'll be retired by then,
Yes,
so
you
let's
will.
not worry about that. You've been chair for how long?
Since 2006. And before that, I was vice chair for 4 years as well.
So what's different about the role of chair as opposed to the role of member?
The chair has some responsibilities for putting together the agenda. The chair is also the leader of the board. He has responsibility for making sure that the commissioner carries out the duties that the board has given him to do, meeting with him on a regular basis. The chair is usually the person that is asked to attend different places on behalf of the board, sometimes delegated. That chair also serves on a number of other boards in the state because of the position. For example, the Connecticut Student Loan Foundation, the P20 Council, etc.
Explain what the P20
P20 Council is a group of educators, business leaders, government officials on all different levels that have come together to try to make a seamless education program in the state of Connecticut from cradle to grave, so to speak, so that every step along the way, the transition is seamless.
Now, obviously, since you're chair of the Board of Governors, all educational institutions are equally important, but some are more important than others. We have about 30 seconds. Tell us what's special about Middlesex Community College.
Tough question. Middlesex Community College will...
Well, you know it pretty well.
Yes,
So.
it will always hold a special place in my heart, mainly because I consider it my home community. And on that basis, I think it will always be very, very important.
And you're not ready to announce $1 million grant.
No,
Over the air.
not yet.
That'll come
Yes.
later. Well, this has been Middlesex Moments, and my guest has been Frank Ridley, Chair of the Board of Governors of Higher Education, past Chair of the Greater Meriden Chamber of Commerce, but above all, Emperor of Meriden. Take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet with 2 M's, comnet.edu. I'm Jonathan Dowby, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.